Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Head Couch Analysts. I am your host, Jacob Sanders, and I am joined by my fellow Cardinals fan, Andrew Pardue. How you doing, bud?
Hanging in there. Wish my team was playing this week, but
Don't
next year, right?
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yeah, you're the Ravens fan.
You know what I think is sad about that is like you're sitting there at 5-10, right? So it's like, you know what? Maybe next year. For me, I'm sitting here. I'm like, we were 14-2. It's not gonna happen again. It's not gonna happen again, right? Like, as much as like I like to believe, the whole like, can you figure out Lamar Jackson thing? I think at this point, it might be possible to quote unquote figure him out. But when I feel like he was the only player that showed up, he wasn't the only one, but he was the player who did most of that hard work. I don't think you've necessarily figured out Lamar Jackson. I think they went.
I think they had a bad night.
I think they went. I think they went towards the running game, or sorry, towards the passing game, and that's when the Ravens realized, oh shoot, we don't have the receivers for that. You saw all those drop passes, right? Even their most sure-handed wide receiver, Willie Snead, dropped 2 that night. So
you know how big of a Lamar Jackson fan I am. I had to convince you he was the best quarterback in that draft class. But even I know he struggled to throw to the outside outside the hashes since college. That's something he needs to work on. That's like one thing that I have on Lamar Jackson. Then you see this whole Pro Bowl competition. You got 2 points on the skills competition.
So did Russell Wilson.
Shut
like
up.
2 years ago.
Shut up. You guys wouldn't be able to score anything. Shut up.
So anyway, this isn't supposed to be a Ravens thing, but I think the point was, though, is like, as a Cardinals fan, you'd be like, oh, next year we're improving. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, that was our peak.
Woo, 3 more wins. Or 2 more wins. And a tie. Improvement.
Yeah, but I'm sitting here like, yeah, that was our peak, and we were 1 and done. So, we got bonked by the Belichick cushion tree, Mike Vrabel, Anyways, let's not talk about the games from 3 weeks ago. Let's talk about last weekend's games. We're here to recap what happened during Championship Sunday, which was an exciting start, but a really boring finish. It was actually very reminiscent of the Championship Sunday from 4 years ago, when we had that really exciting matchup between, I think it was the Patriots and the Broncos, where Brady outdueled Manning, but then the Falcons just absolutely stomped the Packers, and that wasn't even close, going to that Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl. Pretty similar fashion here. We had Kansas City. We had what was somewhat of an exciting game against the Titans, because the Titans got rolling out soon. And then the San Francisco-Green Bay game, which was an absolute slaughter fest. But let's talk about them in order. Let's go to Kansas City Titans first. My overall thoughts. My partner over here, I think it was 3 minutes left to the second quarter, sent me a text saying, tick-tock, 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 tick-tock.
Because the Titans had the ball the entire game that far.
Because he believes that the way to beat the Chiefs was, sawing the clock, and I don't disagree with that.
And it was working until it stopped working and they shut down Derrick Henry.
But what I disagreed with was that it wasn't going to happen. In my opinion, you need 35-plus points to beat this Chiefs team, right? I still hold that actual mentality going into the Super Bowl as well, and I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I just thought to myself, I'm like, okay, so the Titans scored 35 points last time, but I'm like, they were in Tennessee, they're not doing it in Kansas City. This team just has a whole different vibe, and the thing about that last Tennessee matchup was Mahomes was coming back from his injury. That was his very first full starting game, right? So I was like, you know what? They lost 35-32 with a half-assed Mahomes. I doubt they're going to lose with a full-fledged Mahomes, and it was not even close in the second half, right? It was really a tale of 2 halves. Tennessee controlled the first half for the most part, and then Kansas City got a score to lessen the lead.
And they had the double possession.
Yeah.
That's because I remember texting you, because during the game I was like, so in both games you've seen the Chiefs play in the playoffs, they've started slow.
They have. Oddly enough.
And the Titans came out and took a multi-possession lead, and they were in full control of the game. And you're like, wow, if Derrick Henry can keep going, they might pull this off. And then momentum switched like that. So they had that one kickoff return, and they started out, inside the 30-yard line of the Titans, and then you're like, oh. And then everything switched, and it completely flipped, and it just melted down.
Basically, you thought what was going to happen was what they did to Baltimore, right? Mm-hmm. They got ahead, and then they just fed it to Henry, and Baltimore could do nothing about it, right? I think the difference of what happened in this case is you have a very speedy roster in the Chiefs, so they took their shots downfield, and it worked. Mm-hmm. Right, whereas like a team like the Ravens couldn't do that against Tennessee because they just don't have the players for that. They were very much a ball control offense, whereas Kansas City's like they can do it two ways, right? They can give it to their running backs. We've seen Damian Williams win the game for them, right? But we've also just seen them be like, okay, it's at the 25-yard line, it's 3rd and 13, fuck it, 60-yard pass to Hardman, see what happens, right? And more often than not, it works out. Now it doesn't work out every time, right? But more often than not, it does because it's really they have such a unique setup in their wide receivers in the sense that they drafted McCole Hardman to prepare for Tyreek Hill to not be there. That's why they drafted him, right? They're like, we need another speedster. But now they got two speedsters and also this big hand possession receiver, Sammy Watkins, who's no slowpoke himself. Now he's not near the speed of McCole Hardman or Tyreek Hill, but he's still fast. So when you send out three receivers and you tell them, okay, middle of the field, you're streaking, left side of the field, you're streaking, right side of the field, you're streaking. That basically tells the safety, well, who am I defending? The middle streaking guy or the right streaking guy to the left. And if the safety dare picks Tyreek Hill, who's always on the left or right, notice he's never in the center, that means the right side of the field is open for McCole Hardman or Sammy Watkins for the one-on-one. And usually that works out pretty well for them.
And if they do play perfect coverage downfield, you have Travis Kelce underneath who's going to pick up 10, 15 yards on a little, he's going to block his guy at the line, break off, and then, like a little 8-yard curl and then run for another 10 yards.
So essentially...
Because everybody else is downfield.
So essentially the Titans just didn't have, I believe, like the roster to keep
the
up with them.
Though.
And I really like this team. I do believe they are a team that... next year, I feel like their quote-unquote Super Bowl window, not that it was ever, like, wide open in the first place, I feel like it's still slightly coming to a close because this is the 29th oldest roster in the NFL, right? They have a ton of veterans. Their average age is 29th in the NFL. We saw Dean Pease retire as defensive coordinator, which I don't think is that big of a deal. I think he's a good defensive coordinator, but you still got Mike Vrabel there coaching and whatnot. The only thing that I think keeps this roster going is if Derrick Henry has at least one more solid year, right? Which, seeing how many touches he had, he might have one more solid year, and that's it.
And exactly, historically, whenever a running back has 300-plus touches in a year, and especially if they do it back-to-back years, they fall off really quick. Look at David Johnson. He had 408 touches one year, followed it up with 375. Now he's not the same player. Derrick Henry, including the playoffs, I think had 400... Alvin Kamara. I'm not quite ready to go that far with him yet, but you look at Derrick Henry, he had 412 touches, including the playoffs this year. You can't do that with running backs.
I think the difference with Derrick Henry is like he reminds me quite a bit of Marshawn Lynch. When someone, I forget who it was, I think it was Nate Burleson, said he's a once-in-a-decade running back, and I think to myself, I'm like, well, who else was like him before this, right? And I thought, okay, Marshawn Lynch. Who else was like that before Marshawn Lynch? And I was like...
Frank Gore?
I don't even think... I mean, I like Frank Gore, but I don't consider him like... I think bulldozer. Like, who was a bulldozer in like the early 2000s? And I don't think Adrian Peterson's a bulldozer. Like, yeah, he would run over guys, but Adrian Peterson was very much I'm very big and I'm very fast.
Right.
So my speed just naturally means you can't hit me, right?
Man, yeah, I can't really think of him. Mike Allstott?
I guess so, yeah. Honestly, I think you'd have to go all the way back to, like, Terrell Davis.
Yeah, I would probably say so.
Someone like that. Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis might be the one from the 2000s. What was his name? For the Patriots. Corey Dillon. You could also argue, I think the one that I would pick personally, Steven Jackson.
That's a good one, yeah. Steven Jackson was a very underrated running back.
He won't get a lot of like name coverage because, he played for such a shit franchise for so long. Thank you very much to our dear coach, 7-9 coach. Oh, God, what was his name?
Jeff Fisher.
Jeff Fisher, thank you. Thanks so much to Jeff Fisher for wasting Steven Jackson's amazing career.
We're not winning 8 damn games this year. They won exactly 8 games that year.
Wait, was that what it was?
Uh-huh. Because I think that was when they were the Hard Knocks team.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Every July 9th, I send my friend who's a Rams fan, I'm like, Happy Jeff Fisher Day. So, yeah, we got off topic on that one. But on the Derrick Henry thing, he's arguably once-in-a-decade not quarterback, running back. Outside of that, it was really hard to see, like, A.J. Brown cutting it.
He's a rookie. Right.
I do like the Titans, but I think, like, barring a massive, like, MVP type of season from Tannehill and just like a true number one receiver form by A.J. Brown, it's really hard to see this Titans team
to repeat.
Just beating out the Texans for the division.
Yeah.
And
don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Tannehill fan, and I really, really like Tannehill. I mentioned that before. But I like the Titans as a team, but they're even this year, like, you wouldn't consider them a Super Bowl. Nobody expected them to be in the playoffs, period. Nobody at the beginning of the season said, "Oh yeah, the Titans are going to be a Super Bowl."
We all said they'd go 9-7, though.
That's true.
Because they've gone it the last 3 years, right? We're like, oh yeah, 9-7 sounds about right. But it's hard just to see them beating the Texans. Now, I love to meme the Texans because of the whole we're not going to have a general manager thing, which is totally ridiculous, right? I understand Bill O'Brien's trying to control it, but so far their track record has not been great, in my opinion, and I want to see how they're going to build a roster without those first-round picks. Laramie Tunsil's really got to turn into an all-star next year to make that first round even worth it, if you ask me.
Right.
But Deshaun Watson's also one of those quarterbacks that can help make up for deficiencies.
For sure.
But we've also seen that that's not the best recipe for success.
And they got to give him an offensive line.
Look at Green Bay, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers only did it for so long. He did it for like 8 years straight. But he only did it for so long.
Right.
Now those 8 years were absolute bliss watching him, right? From like about 2008 to 2015, watching Aaron Rodgers was absolute bliss. Every time he was on a Sunday night game, I was like, I'm there, right? Through the Super Bowl, through the playoffs, the Green Bay Dallas Cowboy games, the Green Bay Arizona Cardinal games. Like, there's so many iconic.
Those Hail Marys still haunt me. We won that game, but man, those plays.
I remember Chris Collins were just when he launched, because that was the second time Rodgers made that throw, because the first time was the Lions. He made that throw, and just like when Jeff Janis came down with it, Collins, the only thing he's like, you gotta be kidding me. And he said nothing else for like the next 5 seconds. Because it was like, wow, he did it.
Exactly. Because, like, as a Cardinal fan, I was sitting there watching that play like, that didn't happen.
And then you're like looking at the replay. You were probably one of those fans that was looking at the replay and like, there was a slight.
Yeah, he punched it out after he was on the ground holding the ball for 5 seconds. Like,
he punched it out. It doesn't get down.
And Patrick Peterson on that play, like, he was trying to go for the pick. Perfectly could have played it and just knocked it out of his hands, but like.
Hey, you won the game. It is what
it is. I know. Larry, they had their little Hail Mary and we had our Hail Larry, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Fuck you, Packers.
Damn! Oh, bro.
We own the Packers. I don't care.
Actually, you do, though. The
last time
you played them,
we went to Green Bay with Josh Rosen when it was like negative 14 degrees and beat them. Fuck the Packers.
Mike McCarthy fired. Hey, you helped get Mike McCarthy fired. I think you did better. Anyway, so speaking of the Packers, let's actually... do you have anything else on that game?
No.
Okay, so let's segue on into the Packers 49ers then. Overall, I know you're not like the biggest fan of Colin Cowherd here, but there was something he's been saying about the Packers all year, because I do listen to him, and I never believed him until this game. Colin Cowherd has called the Packers a very finesse team this year. He's like, they won't punch you in the mouth. They're not very aggressive. He's like, they're not flashy. They're very finesse. He's like, if Rodgers is on his point and someone else besides Adam is catching a ball, the rhythm and timing is on point, this team scores a lot of points and this team wins. And he's like, and you have the Smith brothers to try and wreak havoc in the backfield. So that way, if you force them to catch up with you, the Smith brothers can bring pressure in that passing game, right? And he's like, if you're playing against a team that wants to ground and pound the ball against you, he's like, this Packers team won't win a game if they want to ground and pound it, right? And so 3 days before the NFC Championship game, he said there is no outcome where I see the Packers winning this. And he said he repeated, because they're a finesse team. They like so he kept using this word all season, right? And even going into Sunday, I was like, I don't believe you, dude, until I finally watched Monster run for over 180 yards plus.
Insane.
And that's when I realized
he finished the game with like 216 yards. Go ahead, I'll look it up.
And that's when I realized that what Cowherd said was true. If they go against a team that wants to punch them in the mouth, they have no way of coming back against it. We saw that before when they played San Francisco, but usually when two teams play each other, the second time around, it's a different outcome. I don't mean that the same team can't win again, but it's usually just a different style of game. And this game felt more of the same of the last time they met up, if that makes sense, right? It just felt like the Packers were at
Exactly. It felt like the game, from that when that last whistle blew in their previous game, it seems like they just started a fifth quarter, and it was the exact same
continuation. It just felt like the 49ers were punching him in the mouth, and the Packers had no response.
Real quick, this is Raheem Mostert's numbers from that game. This guy was on 5 different practice squads.
I remember.
Prior to this. 29 carries, 220 yards, 7.6 per carry average, and 4 touchdowns. And to me, that's a performance incredible. It was so awesome. Like, I'm a Cardinal fan, and I've been shitting on the 49ers all year. We'll get into that a little bit later. That was so incredible and fun to watch, not going to lie. He's their 4th string running back. He's been on 5 different practice squads. That's the kind of performance that we see every year in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl or something like that, where I wouldn't necessarily say no-name player, but like a player that you wouldn't expect to have a big game.
It's typically the Super Bowl hero, right?
Right. It's like the Super Bowl hero.
Like Tyler Lockett for Seattle back in...
Or James White. Because James White's really good, but...
He didn't have a name till then.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have a name until then, and now, what did James White do this year? Exactly. Like, I don't think Raheem Mostert's going to do really anything big ever again. He might have a few good games here and there, and, like, he'll be a decent complimentary back, but that was an insane performance, and, like, good for him to be able to do that in that situation and come through for his team in the NFC Championship game ball game.
So we'll talk about our comments on the 49ers team, just like how we'll talk about more about the Chiefs, because those are the 2 teams in the Super Bowl. We'll talk about the Packers for a second, because we went on the Titans to talk about the Packers. I'm more optimistic about the Packers going forward, because I think there's a lot to build on from here. The fact that you had a rookie coach, went 13-3, made the NFC Championship, right? Aaron Rodgers, I feel like...
With how few weapons they have offensively, and that defense is so overrated. I said that back in week 3. You brought that up actually earlier today, because I forgot that I made that take.
He threw 6 interceptions this year. That's it. Rodgers threw 6. These people who are like, oh, he only threw 25 TDs and 6 interceptions, and I'm like...
I would take that in a heartbeat.
Can I get that every year?
Yeah.
Like, that's a good quarterback. These numbers of needing, like, 40 touchdowns, and needing,
and
it's not necessary.
It's not. It's not necessary.
So not necessary.
It's fun to watch.
If you look at, I think Mahomes now he missed 3 games.
Right.
But he finished with 29. And if you put in those 3 games, let's say he finishes with 34, 35.
Yeah, probably.
That is a far cry from his 50 TD pass, right?
Right.
So, my point being here, and Jimmy G finished with 28 and he's starting in the Super Bowl. So, my point here being is that you don't need these gaudy 40 TD stellar names. And I understand that's underperforming for Rodgers because it's what we were used to from.
Right.
But we have to examine that at this point in his career, he might be a really solid veteran quarterback like Peyton Manning was or like Tom Brady has been. In the twilight of their careers, because Rodgers is entering the twilight of his career, where, you know what, you do rely on that number 1 running back in Aaron Jones and his duo, Jamal Williams, right? But since he's a smart veteran, he can still make that occasional wild throw, but he doesn't need to do it 24/7.
And he still has the arm talent.
I think that's something to work with. Matt LaFleur is going to have the Packers, his offense in there for a second year. There's a lot more for them to talk about. They'll have a full offseason. Right, with the players they want. They realize what they need, what they don't. Obviously, Devontae Adams is good. I think if you can get a solid tight end in there, that'd be nice. And you can now look at the defense, and you can either say, okay, Mike Patine, either we're going to get rid of you, or you can and get someone else, or you can say, okay, Mike Patine, this is what you had. What do you want now?
And what's really good for the Packers going forward is the 2 things that you need to build your team going forward is a quarterback and your coach. And they obviously already have that. And the next couple things are the trenches. They have a good offensive line and they have a good defensive line. They just need some skill position players and maybe some help on the back end of that defense.
And this 13-3 team starts looking like 14-2, 15-1 possibly. Right? I'm not going to go that far.
Right.
But if you're looking to improve like this team that went 13-3. Granted, they had one of the easier schedules. They still went 13-3. I think expecting them to go 12-4, 13-3 again is very realistic.
Right.
So that's how I feel about the Packers going forward. I feel like they got at least 2 to 3 years for their Super Bowl window, right? Depending upon if Rodgers hits that quarterback decline immediately, or if he follows in the footsteps of Manning, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady, and is able to play a bit longer. Brett Favre. Maybe not Manning, because Manning started to fall at 35, so I should say Brady, Brees, or Brett Favre. Those guys who could play till the age of 40, 41.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. I think that's all I got on the Packers for now.
Right, that's pretty much all I got as well. It's just, I picked the Packers for this game, and I did not... We all saw how the game went. It was not even close from the second it started. And I was of the opinion, because back in 2015 when the Cardinals played the Packers in the playoffs, just a few weeks before, the Cardinals had beat them 38-8.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even close.
And that entire week, I was like, this is not going to be the same game. Like, this is going to be a really hard fought game, and it's going to be close. And it was super low scoring throughout the entire game, and we saw what that game turned into. And then I had the same opinion this week because I saw people, the 49ers are going to smoke the Packers. I was like, we saw that in 2015. I don't think so. And I was very wrong. And see, it's hard to beat a team twice in the NFL unless you are that much better than them. And that's just what the 49ers were that day.
Yeah. I think that's what they have been all year, to be honest. Their records match the same, but I think...
They weren't the same team.
The 49ers 13-3 season is a much different season than the Packers 13-3
played a higher quality of opponents and were also in the best division of football in the NFC West.
Yeah.
NFC North, you could argue it's
all right.
It's probably the second worst.
Competitive.
I would say. Next to the NFC East. Because the Bears, you have the worst football team in the league in the Bengals, and then you have the Lions, who, won 4 games? So.
Large part of that being Matt Stafford.
Right.
I think the Lions really realized how much you like Matt Stafford.
I know, right? They started off really good. They started off really strong, but...
Yeah, we can talk about them when we get to the off-season. We'll have some episodes featuring divisions, and we can go rant about each division. There'll be a 2-month segment where we just talk about each division each week. That'll be a lot of fun to do. You'll learn more about those teams than you'll want to learn about them. I promise. Right. I promise. For now, though, the next part would be the Super Bowl. However, if we talked about the Super Bowl, we'd talk about it for, I would say, maybe 25, 30 minutes before we start rinsing and repeating. And that wouldn't be a lot of time. So what we decided to do is we are going to talk about, since it's the very end of the season and the Super Bowl is the last game. Yeah, I want to cry. Super Bowl is always like one of the saddest days for me because it's like, yeah, Super Bowl, and then it's like, oh.
I do have baseball coming, and the D-backs are looking good. But
I know you're excited about the infield. You're excited about the infield on that one.
I'm very excited about baseball.
But since it's the last game, we decided we would look at our season takes in retrospect, right? So we're not going to go over everything, but we're going to take a couple of our worst takes, talk about them, how foolish we were and whatnot, maybe roast each other a bit. And we're also going to talk about our best takes as well. So we'll revel in both our successes and our failures. Let's start with our worst, though. I'm going to go first, okay? My worst take, without a doubt, has been happening since March. And that was when I said the Dallas Cowboys would be a top 3 team no matter what, and they were winning at minimum 11 games. So the reason I had this take very early on was I actually really started to fall for the Cowboys after last year's playoffs. So they beat Seattle, right? Mm-hmm. And I did pick them to beat Seattle last year, but then going into the game where they played the Rams, I picked the Rams to win, but I definitely had this creeping feeling that it was possible for the Cowboys to win, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. But I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, they got 2 rookie linebackers, and they were like the best linebacker group, right? I was like, their secondary is solid. You know, Amari Cooper was like a godsend for Dak Prescott. I'm like, that connection could only get better. And I was like, I really like Michael Gallup, and Michael Gallup actually did make a jump this year. And I was like, and Ezekiel Elliott is Ezekiel Elliott, right? And I'm like, and this offensive line is good. What happened this coming year? Well, first of all, the Prescott to Amari Cooper connection was not as good as it was the year before. The best linebacker trio in football is no longer the best linebacker trio in football. That secondary was leaky as all heck.
Oh, yeah.
And they basically leaned on Dak Prescott to carry the game, which is why Dak Prescott has some really good numbers this year. It's why Dallas, was the number one passing team, yardage-wise, I'm pretty sure, and they had the number 2 offense overall. That's problematic for me for a team that I thought was going to be a ground and pound defensive run the ball team. That's what I thought their identity would be, and that's not what they were this entire year. So part of this I blame on Jason Garrett. The other part of it I blame on the fact that this defense just did not execute like I thought it would. I think for me the biggest disappointment wasn't necessarily the offense on the Cowboys. It was without a doubt the defense. This defense did not perform like it did the year before. You would think that after having such good rookie years that you would only improve from there, and they really didn't. And I know they had the number 1 point differential this year too, and they still ended 8-8. It just baffles me. I could go on and on about why.
The Cowboys have the best point differential, plus 82, and differential of yardage by 1,426 yards, and they were a sub-500 team. That's crazy. And remember,
wait, weren't they a 500 team? Weren't they 8-8? I'm pretty sure Dallas ended 8-8 and Eagles ended 9-8.
You're right.
But either way, they're a 500 team. But all these stats point to like a 12-4 squad, right?
Right.
You know what that comes down to?
Coaching.
I was gonna say situational football, which comes down to coaching.
And it's funny because both of our bad takes. We'll get to mine in a second. We were at a D-backs game discussing this.
Oh yes, we were.
And I was going on, I was like, dude, you're ridiculous if the Cowboys are going to be that good. And granted, I was being a bit facetious. I thought the Cowboys were going to be decent. I actually thought they were probably going to win their division this year. But that's just not, I don't like that.
When they started 3-0, I was so hyped.
Yeah, what? Who'd you play? They played the Dolphins.
But good teams are supposed to beat bad teams anyway, right?
Yeah, but...
Good teams are supposed to beat bad teams anyway.
Yeah. And now... my take. And now, when I first made this take, I was being facetious because they're my division rival and we beat them 4 years in a row.
6-win ceiling, I think.
I did. I was like, oh, they're winning 3 games, but
in genuine, he gave them a 6-win
right,
ceiling.
I gave them about a 6 to 7-win ceiling,
which is still a terrible take now.
Right, it still is. Obviously, looking back, it was a really bad take. But when you're looking at it.
So why don't you actually tell our audience what your bad take was before you get into it?
What do you mean?
Why don't you tell them what it is? I know what it is. They don't.
That the 49ers were winning 6 games? What?
Yeah. So this guy over here said the 49ers would not win more than 6 games. Now, he facetiously said 3 a lot of the times, but he said there was no way they would improve past 6
And then
wins.
they started 3-0, and I was like, oh, fuck. This isn't looking
good.
And then they were 6-0, I was like, shit!
I remember when they started 3-0, and he was like, bah, who have they played? And then now they're here in the Super Bowl, and he has nothing left to say.
Right, and watch, we're going to get into the Super Bowl, and I'm going to give them their due credit, but...
The cherry on top would be them winning the Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. And I'm gonna be so mad if they do, honestly. But I gotta give it up for the Niners. Cardinals are still 8-2 in their past 10, but... we won't get into that.
So that means for this decade of football, the Seahawks and 49ers would have been able to pull it through while the Cardinals and Rams could choked it away in the Super Bowl.
True.
I'm just joking, bud. I remember seeing this stat where it was like, oh, the NFC West has been in like 9 different Super Bowls this decade. I'm like, and they've won 1. Right. What's your point?
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? That's really actually really crazy when you think about it. But
They won the Denver Seahawks one. They lost the Patriots one. They lost the other Patriots one. They lost to the Steelers. And then this year we'll see if they lose. They win or lose to the Chiefs, right? But no, I just when I saw that stat, I wanted to retweet it and say they've only gotten 1 Super Bowl out of that. What's your point? But I wasn't going to be that negative about it because an entire division's still making the Super Bowl.
Right. It just means that division is that good.
The division is that good, yeah. Which is kind of funny to look at.
Which is a nightmare for me.
Well, because there was points this year when yeah, I forgot there was the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl too. I was forgetting what the other one was. Wow. I forgot that. But when you look at how crazy that division has been, right? The ups and downs. There was a point where the 49ers were the worst football team. Right? There was a point where the Cardinals were the worst football team, right? There was a point where the Rams were the worst football team. So this division, and Seattle's actually always been generally good. Thank you to Pete Carroll. They've had a lot of steady.
And even when we think they're finally going to fall off, they go out and win 10, 11 games and make the playoffs and make it to the NFC Championship game or something like that.
Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, coaching, quarterback and coach. That's what you need to start off with. But it's so crazy to see like the highs and the lows of that division. It reaches literally the highest of highs, but also like literally the lowest of lows. The lowest of lows being that 7-9 appearance by the Seahawks, who upset the Saints.
How far the division has come since then, honestly.
So, I don't know where... Oh, yeah. We were on your worst take. So, is there anything else you got to say about your 49ers take?
Not really. I was wrong.
I mean,
admit it.
just like me, right? I was foolish. The one thing I will say about my bad take with Dallas is, like, even during Week 8, when they were 5-3, I was like, nope, they got this. They're 5-3. They're at least going to finish 9-7 or 10-6. There's no way they lose this game.
And I was telling them the Eagles are winning that division.
No. Because they were 4-5 at the time. Yikes, dude. Big fucking yikes. So, those were our worst takes. Now for our best takes. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first? I don't really care which.
I'm going to go first on this one. Okay. And it might be me being a little biased here, but...
Yeah, he's got a couple. He's got 2 of them here.
Cliff Kingsbury. The second Cliff Kingsbury was hired, he was let's keep in mind, Cliff Kingsbury was a head coach at Texas Tech that went 35-40 in his career. And now when you look at that, why is this guy getting an opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL? And when I first saw that, it was a red flag to me. But then I saw what he did with Patrick Mahomes. And I was still on the Josh Rosen train at the time. And I did not want Kyler Murray. I was extremely against it. Sanders can vouch for that. I was pissed about Kyler Murray for the first 2 months after we got him.
Remember his reaction when they drafted Kyler Murray is he said, fuck!
I was at work. I was working at Topgolf at the time, and I was a manager. And we was watching the draft, and I was talking to my buddies and everything at work for months leading up to it. That I was like, oh, there's no way in hell we take Kyler Murray. There's no way. They're like, oh, well, it's Cliff Kingsbury's guy. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. It's not happening. But
then there was 3 days before the draft, and you and I had this sinking feeling.
And then I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then I was just like, just take Quinnen Williams. Thank God they didn't do that. But I was like, take Quinnen Williams. And Goodell goes up there with the first overall pick. Cardinals select Kyler Murray. I was like, oh. I screamed in front of 50 guests. I was like, fuck! I was so upset. For weeks after that, I was upset. And then it's because I like Josh Rosen so much. Because even leading up to that, I was like, Kyler Murray's going to end up being a better quarterback than Josh Rosen. There's no doubt about it. I saw what Josh Rosen did.
He already is.
And I'm still hoping and praying for Josh Rosen because I still really love him as a guy. I hope he gets out of Miami. Could you imagine that if back-to-back years after getting drafted in the first round?
He's going to New England.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not lying. I really hope he does. That'd be awesome. But going back to Cliff Kingsbury, the second I saw he got hired, I was all on board. I thought he was going to bring a really great offense. I wasn't big on the air raid. It made me nervous at first, but we saw how quick he was willing to adapt in the NFL. In the first 4 weeks of the season, the Cardinals started 0-3-1, and it's because every single snap they were running out 4 or 5 wide receivers, no tight ends, and 1 and 2 running backs. Every single time.
It's not like those losses were terrible. The tie with the Lions was not bad. The loss to the Ravens was not bad, right? None of those losses were. I would say, except for the Falcons game.
No, the Falcons. I was at that game. We won that game. The Panthers game was bad.
The Panthers.
And then
that was bad.
Right.
That was when we all fell for the backup quarterback. Yeah. That's when we were all like, "Oh, well, maybe he could replace Newton." And then it turns out, no,
he was just playing the Cardinals' defense. But we saw his willingness to adapt. to using multiple tight ends at a time. Max Williams and this guy who's coming out of nowhere now, Dan Arnold.
I really like that combination of tight ends.
I like it a lot
Dan
too.
Nice.
Dan Arnold is dirty in the red zone. I'm really excited about him. And the Cardinals receivers couldn't get separation. That's the thing. I think he got away from the 10 personnel because he knew he didn't have the personnel to do it successfly
and he traded for Kenyon Drake.
And then he traded for Kenyon
more.
Exactly.
He used Chase Edmonds when he realized Edmonds was better for his system than David Johnson.
He started. The team started off 0-3-1, and going into the situation where nothing was going right, and the entire national media was criticizing Cliff Kingsbury and the coaching hire. To start 0-3-1 and then win 3 straight games by completely changing your offense and what you're doing as a team, and to be the number 10 rushing football team, fuck the air raid. It was the run raid.
Yeah.
Like, Cliff Kingsbury did a damn good job. He only won 5 games. Yeah, whatever. Look at that defense. We almost beat the 49ers twice.
Yeah, it was very close. Now, there's something to be said for a divisional game. I'm always going to say that, right?
I agree.
You could take literally, think about it, the Patriots and the Dolphins. The Dolphins have actually have the closest point differential with the Patriots. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, no, I saw.
And they've been one of the worst teams for over a decade. And
Right.
the Patriots have been one of the best teams for over a decade, right? So I think the big thing is that's a divisional game. But the one thing I want to say about your Cliff Kingsbury comment is Andrew over here was one of the very few guys who believed in Cliff Kingsbury going into the season. I'm not saying in the off season. I mean going into the season. And I said, you know what, dude? I don't know yet.
Right.
I told him I don't know.
It's either going to be a dumpster fire or it's going to be.
I said it's going to work out or it's going to be absolutely horrible. And my thought, I was leaning towards horrible because I was like, he clearly can't coach defense, and that's a weakness of his. I still kind of think that. And
no, I agree, but that's also I knew that's not what he was hired for.
That's not what he was hired for.
Right.
I
wasn't expecting him to.
Let's face it, the Cardinals have been, I would say, since 2015, a rather quote-unquote hopeless organization in the sense that they were running through these things and they were a losing team. I think that's what it was. If you look at the last couple of years, right, Carson Palmer's last year, what we thought was going to be Larry Fitzgerald's last year after, everything just seemed so dreadful, right? And finally, the organization, I feel like they pressed the fuck it button and said, we need to do something different.
We need to do something crazy.
Whether it works or not, we have to do something different, right? We can't keep doing this cycle of new coach, new coach, right? So basically, they're like...
Because they kept doing the safe thing, too. Like, let's go get Bruce Arians. Yeah, it worked out. Let's build a defensive team this time and see if it works out. Let's go get Steve Wilkes, this guy who... kicked our ass and owned us in Carolina. He could probably build a good defense, and we saw how that was.
He's pretty great for the Browns, too. but what I'm saying, though, is I feel like there's points where, teams that are... You see it even in the middle of games. Teams that, have nothing left to play for, they do something stupid or crazy to try and win a game, right?
Like the Cardinals doing that. Cardinals did, 4 different fake punts this year.
And then, but as an organization, I feel like they had... this consecutive part of losing seasons, they were basically going back to pre-2012.
Right. No, I agree.
Right?
It was...
And I think they saw that, and they're like, we don't want to go back to pre-2012. If we're going to go back to that gloom and doom, we might as well do it doing something dumb. Right? So they tried something dumb, and I really don't care what anyone says about Cliff Kingsbury, because I've seen some negative things about him. I don't understand it. I try to understand other people's viewpoints.
Right.
And when you say 5-10, I can't argue against that. But my problem is that I feel like you're if you say 5-10, you're missing the point of why he was hired. He was hired to rejuvenate an offense that was the worst thing I've seen in years. I'm not kidding when I say that Arizona Cardinals offense is the worst product that's been put on the field.
And me and you have if you watch the Cardinals in the 2018 season, which nobody fucking did.
There's a lot of bad takes about the 2018 Cardinals.
You fired a first-year head coach. That's so dumb. You got to give him a second. You did not watch a second of Cardinal football if you agree with that.
And then you have the social justice people who are like, well, he's black, so
exactly.
That's not why it happened. Because if it was, right, Vance Joseph wouldn't have gotten his chances he did, right? Or Mike Tomlin would be having the chances. That stuff aside, because this is not a social justice podcast. Right. You had to have watched the Cardinals games to completely understand how horrible it is. And what's funny is everyone agrees with the Freddie Kitchens fire, right? And I'm sitting here thinking, Freddie Kitchens won more games than Steve Wilkes did.
Exactly.
Right? but everyone says he deserves to be fired. And but because they watched the Browns games. The Browns had the hype. And people were disappointed, right?
And
if you watched the Cardinals, you would realize just how disappointing that product was on the field. And I think nothing epitomizes that more than Von Miller's quote from 2018. I don't know if you remember.
We're going to kick their ass.
It was a Tuesday night. It was a Thursday night game. It was Tuesday night. They said, how do you feel about the Cardinals game? And I think they were 0-2 at the time, right?
Yeah.
And Von Miller said, word for word, we're going to kick their ass. And the game was 48-10.
Yeah.
They kicked their ass.
Yo, I remember that game very vividly.
He followed up on that quote very much. I think
to get our fucking ass embarrassed on a Thursday night football game. That was the game that got Wilkes fired.
It was a home Cardinals game, too. Home Cardinals game.
That was the game that got Wilkes fired. That was the 58-0 beatdown that we got from Seattle in 2012. I watched every second of that football game. I've been through pain, goddammit!
So, point is, you were right about Cliff Kingsbury. What was the other thing you were right about this season?
I remember do you remember? Because it's slipping my mind right now. I remember bringing it up to you earlier.
It was week 3.
Week 3. So through the first 2 weeks of this NFL season, everybody was really high on the Packers defense.
As was I will say that.
And for a second, I was too. But I was like, they played Trubisky. It's not that special. Go do it against a good team. And then, I don't remember the score of that Week 3 game, but they were playing the Eagles.
34-27.
34-27, there you go.
In Lambeau Field.
And they got lit up by Carson Wentz at a mediocre offense, I could say.
I don't think the offense was mediocre. I think the Eagles' offense was actually really good. If you look at the Eagles' early stats, like the first 5 weeks, so before Alshon Jeffrey got hurt,
right?
Before everyone got hurt,
right?
They actually were doing some good things. Like they were 2-2, but they were doing it like it was their defense that was failing them, and then it turned into the opposite case,
right?
Over the course of the season. I remember he texted me and he said, Packers got exposed. And I was like, no way, dude. It was a bad game. I was like, no, they had 2 good games. They had 1 bad game in week 3. I know it was at home, but you know what? We'll see how it does. And then week 4, they were fine. Week 5, they were fine. And then week 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, I started noticing that the Packers defense just kept letting things happen. And by the end of the season...
It was such a leaky defense.
And by they were very bend but don't break, but not in a good feel way.
Right.
Because there's some bend but don't break defenses where you're like, oh yeah, they're bend but don't break, but they make the play at the very end, right?
Right.
Whereas the Packers, it was like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
When you can't beat the Lions for 120 minutes of football, I think that's a problem, right? So, yeah, his take of the Packers defense being not so good at all was actually one of his best takes of the season. He pretty much said it before anyone else did, I remember. So, my best 2 takes of the season, mine are pretty short, especially this first one. My preseason pick for the Super Bowl was Kansas City and New Orleans. Obviously, New Orleans isn't there, but I take pride in the fact that Kansas City is there. Even going into the wild card weekend, I still stuck with my pick with Kansas City. I thought,
which means a lot coming from a Ravens fan.
Yeah, I thought the AFC Championship would be the Ravens and KC, right? But KC's style just so easily meshes well against Baltimore style. They beat him last year in Lamar Jackson's rookie season. Admittedly, that was his 4th game he started. They took it to overtime, right? And they had to do a stupid 4th and 12 and no-look Mahomes pass to win the game, right? And then there was, I think it was another 4th and 19. Suggs was literally on Mahomes' ass and he just launches it down the field. And fucking CJ Mosley can't cover a receiver worth for shit. So, I forget who it was, but one of the receivers caught a pass, and that's when I'm like, 2 4th down conversions in a row. Mahomes is absolutely insane. I don't want to hurt my brain, right? And then coming in this season, the Chiefs beat us pretty good. It was 33-28. The score looks close, but that game, I think it was 30-13 at one point. The Ravens had to really catch up to even make it close. So it's not like if you were a Chiefs fan, you were ever too concerned about the Ravens scoring points in that game. Me as a fan, I was like, all right, we need an onside kick. We need an onside kick. It's like, when you're as a fan saying we need an onside kick, that's when you know it's desperate mode, right?
What do you think about the 4th and 15 series of the onside kick? Did you see that?
We can talk about that later, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
But going into what I thought would be the Ravens-Chiefs AFC Championship game, I would pick the Chiefs. I just think they match really well with Baltimore. Baltimore blitzes more than any other team, and Mahomes is the best quarterback against the blitz. The Ravens' defensive strength is Mahomes' strength, right? So literally the antidote for the Ravens defense is Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, you know what? We're probably not beating Kansas City. So no matter what, I expected Kansas City to be in the Super Bowl. I just wish we hadn't lost. I'd rather lose to the Chiefs than the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
That's my reality of life. You can also, if you want, up to you. My other, he's clicking on the fan. It's a little hot in here. The other thing I'd like to say that happened, that I think was one of my better takes, and I take a lot of pride in this one, actually a ton of pride, is, I remember you asked me this before you moved into your apartment. You asked me, who do I think is winning the AFC North? And I told you, I don't know. I just said not the Browns. I remember saying that. And you were like, really, why not? Because, they got Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield's
Because even, I wasn't super on the Browns hype train, but I thought they were going to be pretty good.
And a lot of people were like...
I picked the Ravens to win that division. But...
A lot of people said a minimum 8 to 9 wins. Some people were even saying win the division at 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And I went out there and I said they're not winning more than 8 games. Mm-hmm. They're winning 8 or less. 100%. And even my uncle, who's a huge football fan, too, he's like, dude, that's crazy. The roster is
you remember, I fought you hard on that one, too, because that roster was good. But you're going to bring up the point, and now I completely...
So here was my point. Now everyone fucking agrees with me. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the head coaching hire, and that was my point. My biggest issue was Freddie Kitchens was a quarterback's coach from Arizona, right? He was a quarterback's coach for Drew Stanton and Carson Palmer, and then he went to the Browns, which I'm not saying that's an upgrade or a downgrade, but he went to the Browns after Bruce Arians left the league, and he was the quarterback's coach for Baker Mayfield. Now, he did some good things for Baker Mayfield. Gotta tell you that now. Right?
Baker Mayfield vouched for him, and when you got your young rookie quarterback vouching for a guy to be his head coach, as an organization, it's really hard to deny that. And he upgraded to offensive coordinator, but my problem was he was an offensive coordinator, an interim offensive coordinator for 7 games. Right. And after 7 games of being an offensive coordinator, you want to put him to head coach. Mm-hmm. Browns are going to Brown. That's my reason. Right. That's my logic for that. But in my head, back in March when they announced it, I'm like, you cannot hire a coach who's only been an offensive coordinator for 7 games. That was my opinion. I said, he doesn't even know how to be an offensive coordinator yet. Why are you making him a head coach? There's no way he'd be able to rally a team with the attitude of Baker Mayfield, with the attitude of Odell Beckham. And another thing I thought to myself was, if this Browns team doesn't start 3-0, they're going to have a dreadful season. The reason being is because Odell Beckham was sick of losing. He went to the Browns to win. Jarvis Landry's not that great of an attitude either. Off the field, I actually really like Jarvis Landry. But on the field, he's not that great of an attitude either. Baker Mayfield, on a technicality, has always been a winner till the season. Even last year, even though the Browns were 7-1, he was 5-2 as a starter. Mm-hmm. So Baker Mayfield always knew life as a winner. And even in his starting life as an NFL, he was a winner. Right? I'm always going to hold the fact that he choked away the biggest game of his rookie year that year, which was against the Ravens. He had the chance to knock him out of the playoffs, and he threw fucking 3 interceptions. Right. And by the way, he threw like 21 this year. He threw a lot of picks his rookie year, too. And he started how many games his rookie year? 7?
7.
He threw 14 picks.
Yeah. So, all in all, it just felt like the media was really hyping up these players, and I couldn't deny that. But in the end, I stuck to the fact that I'm like, yeah, you need a coach. Mm-hmm. And frankly, Freddie Kitchens is just not it. And that was my opinion. And hey, look where we are now. Everybody's so happy that he got fired, and I feel so vindicated now. And they went 6-10 or 7-9.
They went 6-10, I'm pretty sure.
Either way, I was right. They weren't going to win more than 8 games, and that they were going to. I expected them to go 7-9 or 8-8 actually, and they didn't even meet that. So they were worse than my expectation, which was pretty low. So that was my best take from the season.
6-10
is that the Browns were way overhyped, and I didn't see a reason why the Steelers or the Ravens weren't going to win the division. So, yeah. I think we should go on to what probably everyone is here for, what you and I are here for.
The Pro Bowl?
Yes! Let's talk about the Pro Bowl. No, I didn't even watch it. Was it entertaining at all?
No, I didn't watch it either. I knew Budda Baker got an interception. And
I thought you were like actually watching it.
No, I watched that one highlight and that's it. Oh, it was off Lamar Jackson too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I watched it. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like... Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna lie though. Out of those Pro Bowl things, I think the Saints found their new uniforms. You see those NFC uniforms?
Yeah.
Those would be nice Saints uniforms. I'm not gonna lie.
The one thing that I was gonna mention about the Pro Bowl is they did like a rule change for onside kicks in that, and so instead of doing an onside kick, you had to convert a 4th and 15 from, I believe, your own 35 or 25.
Man, that really sucks for running teams.
Right. And if you converted it, you just continue the drive.
But if you don't convert it,
then it goes back to that team from wherever you get tackled or.
Well, where do you start the 4th and 15 at?
I believe it was either the 35 or the 25 of your own side of the field.
I'm not sure if that's worth it. Giving them the ball in the 35 is
well, because I mean,
but if you do an onside kick, you give it.
You're gonna give it to them. You're gonna be giving it to them about midfield plus.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is better than the 35.
Yeah, but I mean, getting a 4th and 15 is a hell of a lot easier than an onside kick.
The difference is the 4th and 15.
We can debate this later.
No, hold on. But what I was gonna say is the 4th and 15 puts them in field goal range.
Yeah.
The onside kick doesn't. I'm just saying. We can debate that later, but that's my opinion on that one, right? Maybe I can think more about it later, but that's what I got for you right now. Super Bowl, not the Pro Bowl. Super Bowl. It's the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to have white and red as our color clash. We got the Kansas City Chiefs being the home team and the 49ers being the away team, which I think is kind of odd. Actually, I feel like the team with the better in-season performance should have had home team. Like, the 49ers should be the home team, right?
I think, don't they just trade it off every year between the AFC and the NFC?
Sure, but the Niners were 13-3 and the Chiefs were 12-4. Don't you give it to... I'm just saying, right? I feel like... Or you give it to the higher seed or whatever.
Or because they give it to... Because it's being played in Miami. They're going to give it to the AFC team.
I guess so. I don't actually know how that works. We'd have to look that one up.
Yeah.
We do not know that one. Doesn't really matter that much, right? Because it's not like either one of them. It's a home field. It's also being played in Miami, and I would actually say that arguably the quote-unquote advantage is for the 49ers because that's the weather that they typically play in at home, whereas Kansas City plays in colder weather. But that's neither here nor there. Let's just dive into this. There's a lot to be said about both of these teams. I'm going to start with Kansas City. So Kansas City, I find their story this year to be fascinating. They went from this team going into this year that was high-flying, high-scoring, and that's still kind of the identity they hold, but it's not like they were throwing,
It's not like they're a historically incredible offense.
Yeah, they weren't throwing burgers everywhere.
Right.
Like they were the previous year, right? They weren't having to beat the Rams 54-51, right? They weren't having to, beat the Patriots, 35-38 or whatever it was, and then only to lose in overtime to the Patriots again, right? They weren't having to do these things this year. And frankly, it's kind of weird to, when you look at this Chiefs team, because for me, the win condition is still the Chiefs need to score a ton. And the win condition to beat the Chiefs is still you need to score a ton.
Right.
You just need to win a shootout against them. And I anticipate that the Super Bowl is going to be a shootout. There's actually a scenario in my head where this is not a shootout whatsoever. And it's actually just a bloody mess. And San Francisco just wins that one far and away. Because I don't think the Chiefs win a bloody mess.
Right.
The 49ers are the team to win a bloody mess. But that's like 1 in 100 scenarios. And it can happen, but that's my 1 in 100. So, what do the Chiefs got to do to win this game? To me, they got to do the same thing they've been doing all year. You separate out the secondary, you split them up, you make sure they can't play zone coverage, they have to play man-to-man well. And if you force them to play man-to-man and one of your men is beating them, which, frankly, Tyreek Hill is going... I don't care. I think Sherman's still really good. He's still... Dude, I remember seeing a stat that he put up, right? He posted it because I follow him on Twitter. He put it up for this year. I think his pass rating this year was a 16.8. And I was like, dude, how are you still doing that well? You're fucking 32.
Defensive line.
He plays in a cover 3 system. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue semantics on that. To me, that's arguing semantics, right? If you're a player and you're really good in your system, then fuck it, right? Like a quarterback. Like, Lamar's not going to do well in Kansas. He's not going to do well in New England's offense.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to do well in the Packers' offense.
Mm.
Lamar's going to do well in the Kansas City offense or
Right.
the Baltimore offense, right? Same way I kind of feel for Richard Sherman. He's not going to do well in full-on man-to-man. He's going to do well in the zone because that's what he is. He's a zone corner, right? And if you are elite at that, then who am I to argue against it, right? If you are not allowing a receiver to ever do anything against you, what am I to say against that? Anyway, my point is, though, is that Tyreek Hill will blow by him. Or McCole Hardman will.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins, maybe he'd have a better shot at that. I don't know how they're...
But it's not like Sherman's good. Here's the thing with Sherman, is he never follows the number one receiver or any receiver.
No, he stays on his side.
And he's got to stay on his side. And the guys that are lining up outside are going to be Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill.
So I think it largely depends on who do you send to that side. Do you send Tyreek Hill, or do you send McCole Hardman, or hey, do you say fucking send Kelsey out there occasionally, right? I think every corner has their good and bad times. You can take you can take even Darrelle Revis when he was Revis Island. Mm-hmm. He got burned a couple times even in his prime, right?
Playing defensive back is the hardest position to play, if you ask me. As someone who plays defensive back in my Mesa Flag Football League, it's hard.
You just made every
I know, right, exactly. But it was a joke. But it's a difficult position to play because so much is riding on a defensive back. Because you could give up a 50-yard play, and that could cost you a game. It's so much is riding on them, and so often they don't have the help of other players, and they're expected to cover number one receivers, these freak athletes. And they're already out of position from the second they're snapped because they have to backpedal versus a guy who's running straight at them.
I think the big thing for corner, if you ask me, is it's a 50-50 battle on paper. It's more of a 40-60 battle for the cornerback, right? Because of that advantage that the wide receiver has.
And the rule book.
That too. Quite honestly, I still am going to consider Richard Sherman, a top 5 corner. Mm-hmm. He plays his game. If you play your game really well, who am I to question you, right? But there's going to be times when Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman will beat him. It just happens, right? You're not going to win every single snap. Right. That's just a fact.
Especially against the fastest player in the league.
Nobody wins 100% of it. Nobody does, right? There was a time or a couple games when someone like Darrelle Revis or Richard Sherman or even Patrick Peterson or I'm trying to think of other cornerback names, Jalen Ramsey at a point. There were times when these guys did win every snap in a game. But they can't do that every game. Right. It just doesn't happen.
And it's being human. That's another thing that I hate is when people go off on NFL players or defensive backs for having one bad game or one bad play. These guys are human. They fuck up too. We fuck up at work too.
Yeah, shit happens, right? The difference is they're doing it in front of millions of people. Right. So, back to what I was talking about. I feel like Casey just has the personnel to beat San Francisco's secondary.
I would agree with that.
And the big part too is I also think they can control the middle of the field with Damian Williams and Travis Kelce. Where I think Kansas City is going to struggle is actually where San Francisco excels. And I'll get into this with San Francisco, but it kind of goes hand in hand. Their line is okay. Having an okay line sounds like disaster against Nick Bosa, D Ford, and who was the Buckner?
Buckner, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Frank Clark. That entire... Oh! Think about that. Frank Clark, so D Ford, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa.
Hey, Frank Clark is on the Chiefs, by the way. Just so you know. You got Armstead, right? You got D Ford. Frank Clark was the one who made the comic against Henry, and he held up his
yeah, you're right. You're right.
No, D Ford, Armstead, Nick Bosa, but I'm forgetting who the fourth guy is. Either way, these guys are killing the game, frankly. Yeah. And it's not like the Chiefs line is something that anyone fears, right?
Exactly. And that's what I'm thinking too, is when I'm looking at this game, the way the Chiefs are going to win is if this line can give Patrick Mahomes enough time to throw the football. And, yeah, that sounds pretty fucking basic, but I'm not impressed by this Chiefs offensive line. It's good, but can it shut down this elite defensive line?
I think a lot of it's going to come down to Patrick Mahomes. And he can do it because he's
the best quarterback in the league.
But if you watch the Titans, right, the Titans were getting to him quite a bit, and he had to scramble everywhere.
Right.
That run that he had against the Titans that everyone was talking about, right, that only happened because the line broke down, right? Or even some of, like, the stupid miracle, like, did you watch, you know the guy that was, like, he posted videos 2 years ago that was like, Tom Brady's the best fucking quarterback. Let me show you. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that 3-yard pass. Yeah. And it's only because he's like, go you motherfucker, Elman. Yeah. That's why he got the first down. Tom Brady willed him to do it, right? He did one for Patrick Mahomes where he's like, let me tell you why Patrick Mahomes is a disgrace, right? And he showed a play where Patrick Mahomes rolled out to the right and he's like, instead of taking the check down like he should,
he throws it downfield to Travis Kelce for 15 yards. He could have just taken the 3-yard gain. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's like, that tells me that he's a me player. That's bad for the NFL. Just, if you haven't seen that video, totally should. The guy's hilarious. But, it's that kind of play where he rolled out to the right and just threw a ball. It shouldn't be happening, right? But I'm not comparing Patrick Mahomes to Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying that. But it feels like Aaron Rodgers from 2012 when Rodgers did the same thing, right? Went out of the pocket, made some stupid play throw that shouldn't have happened. And this Chiefs offense isn't backyard football like that Packers offense was, but they certainly know that when Mahomes is out of the pocket, that's when the receiver says, I need to stop the route I'm doing, and I need to go somewhere else.
They know how to adjust, and the speed that they have, they can get to where they need to be to make a throw as easy as possible for Patrick Mahomes, which you don't even really need to do, because you can see him throw it 15 yards across the field when he's looking the other damn way, perfectly accurate.
So I feel like a large part of this comes to, can you make a container, right? Not necessarily just the pocket, but can you contain Mahomes like a few yards within the hashes? If you can, I think it's sack city for the Niners defense, right? If you can't, I think it's open season on the 49ers secondary. So there's a lot of things going on there that the Chiefs offense needs to do. As for the Chiefs defense, you need to stop the run. No one has stopped the 49ers run this year. Not even the Baltimore Ravens defense did. I think they still had like 112 yards against that Ravens defense, right? Which, against the Ravens run defense, 112 yards is still pretty good. I don't know. Can you stop that run game? I really don't know.
See,
it's a very good, well-designed... It's not like the players are spectacular. It's just Shanahan.
Kyle Shanahan is a magician when it comes to drawing up run plays.
Exactly.
Like when...
the scheme is great.
Yeah, it really is. And the blocking schemes he draws up for those run plays and the way he pulls his guards. And George Kittle is just an incredible football player.
Because it's not just the pass catching, it's his blocking. It's blocking. George Kittle's blocking is phenomenal.
He is the most well-rounded offensive threat in the National Football League, if you ask me right now.
I feel like this is only his second year, but if he continues this kind of dominance, he definitely belongs in the names of like Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski. Like Gronkowski blocked anyone in front of him, he didn't give a fuck, right? And he still bulldozed you over for a catch because he didn't care. Right. Travis Kelce's kind of that same type of thing, and George Kittle is very much becoming that. This is not, a diss on like Jimmy Graham when he was in his prime or Jared Cook was in his prime, but when I think of Jimmy Graham and Jared Cook, I think pass catching. Right. I don't think blocking for those guys, right? When I think Travis Kelce and I think Rob Gronkowski, I think blocking and pass catching, right? And George Kittle's become that perfect hybrid. It's kind of funny how, like, tight end went from a blocking position to a pass catching position to now people are like,
it's a hybrid.
What if you got a hybrid, right? Because even, like, other tight ends that I can think of, like Max Williams or Mark Andrews or things like that, those guys are blocking, but they're also catching, right?
I won't go that far with Max Williams. I really like Max Williams.
He had some pretty good plays this year.
He had a couple good plays, but he also had a drop where nobody was within 20 yards of him on fourth down,
He was looking into the sun.
I don't care.
Shit
You got to
happens.
catch that damn
Shit
ball.
happens. I'm going to just say that shit
I
happens.
don't get me wrong. I really like Max Williams, but I wouldn't. He's definitely a stronger blocker than he is pass catcher.
Yeah. I think, for where was I at before we talked about the tight ends? My bad.
Shit. Can you stop the run game?
Oh, yeah, 49ers. I'm asking can you stop the run game because I was going on the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
You pulled up a stat that I didn't really care about against the Titans because I'm like, the Titans should start winning the game.
Mm-hmm.
But they have not been that very good against the run, right? They've been a bottom, I think, 8 team against the run. This is the type of team where I worry about that. For me, Derrick Henry is a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
The 49ers are not a one-man show. You got Emmanuel Sanders, you got Deebo Samuel. Jimmy G can make a play when he needs to. George Kittle, Robbie Mostert. I forget the Matt Breida, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just named so many other players that the Niners have, the Titans didn't, right? Derrick Henry was the one-man show. The 49ers are just a very, very complete team. They don't need their quarterback to win the game. There's times when they don't need their running backs to win the game, and they have Jimmy G take care of it, like the game against the Saints, right? It's really hard to like go to the Chiefs, defense and say, can you defend one of the most complete offenses that also has a genius calling the plays,
right?
Because Kyle Shanahan will go in with a game plan, right? And if the Chiefs' defense addresses the game plan, you think Kyle Shanahan's going to stick to it?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to stick to it, but he's going to tweak it.
Right.
He's going to make a play look like it's something else, but it's actually the same play. Mm-hmm. You're going to fall for that little trick, and they're going to run it this way. Or they're going to make it look like it's a pass to Kittle like it was the previous play, but really they're throwing it downfield to Deebo Samuel, right? Or it's some stupid-ass trick play to Emmanuel Sanders, and Emmanuel Sanders throws it down the field to George Kittle. Right? We saw it played against the Saints that way. We've seen them pull... This is the final game of the year, right? Mm-hmm. You pull everything out of your playbook. You
Philly special.
Can we stop calling it the Philly special? I literally hate we call it the Philly special because other teams did it before.
The Patriots did it before them in that game.
The one where Tom Brady dropped it, and then there was the meme of him dropping the Super Bowl trophy. Yeah, they literally did it right before that. But hey, the Eagles created it. Whatever. God, it's not like a quarterback fake has ever not been done before. It's definitely been done. I don't want to sound like a downer, but to me it's really hard to see the Chiefs' defense stopping the 49ers from scoring points. Let me segue that into the 49ers' offense, unless you have something else to say about the Chiefs.
When I'm looking at this game...
We'll hold that on pause then.
Overall... the Chiefs need to be able to run the football as well. Patrick Mahomes...
Do they, though? Or do they just need to get a screen game going? Which has been their running game for the last
They need to be able to run the football as well. Patrick Mahomes is their leading rusher in the playoffs. He's led their rushing in both of their games so far. You need Damian Williams to have a bigger impact. On top of that, I believe this Chiefs offense can destroy this 49er secondary because that secondary is a little bit older, it's a little bit slower, and that's the perfect kryptonite for what the Chiefs have on offense.
So, big question for you, because I've been debating this, and I think this is perfect for you to go on this tangent, okay? Defensive coordinator for the 49ers, totally blanking on his name. My bad for preparation on that. He's been arguably one of the best defensive coordinators in the game this year. Do you think he comes up with a unique game plan to stop that that Kansas City attack?
I believe he does, but I just don't think he has the personnel on the back end to match what the Chiefs have.
Not even if you uniquely put around D Ford or Nick Bosa too. Because here's the thing,
that's what I'm going to get to.
I don't think you stop the Kansas City passing game by stopping the receivers.
Right.
I think you destroy that line.
Mm-hmm.
And if you destroy that line, that gives Mahomes no time and you pressure him.
Right, and that's exactly what I was going to get to. I was like, I believe this receiving core and the weapons they have can wreck this secondary. But it's going to fall on the Chiefs' offensive line to give Mahomes the time. And that's why I'm saying the Chiefs need to be able to run the football because the 49ers don't have a very good run defense. It's a very middle-of-the-pack run defense. If you can run on them, incorporate play action, and mix up that offense, and have them guessing.
Oh, it's all day points for Kansas City.
If the Chiefs start slow and they get behind like they have, you open the floodgates for the 49ers and the Chiefs might be fucked. The Chiefs.
That's the one scenario where it's
yes,
a
exactly.
game.
The Chiefs cannot be one-dimensional. That's why I'm saying they need to be able to run the football. Patrick Mahomes can't be the leading rusher again.
Okay, but can you utilize the running game through what they have before, which is the screen game?
Yes, you can, but you need to be able to be a traditional run team as well, because screen game is going to be hard against this defense because you see that defensive line, because you have to pull so many offensive linemen to run a screen.
Got a lot of speed.
Exactly.
Like they just have some speed there.
Exactly. So while I agree with that, you better draw up really quick screens and maybe do like wide receiver screens, do tight end screens to set that up. But like I'm saying, is you can try doing screens, but I believe that defensive line is too good. You need to be able to run the football. Damian Williams, if the Chiefs win, Damian Williams will be Super Bowl MVP.
Disagree.
Bold, hot take right here.
I honestly think it'd be Hill or Mahomes.
You're probably right, but this is just the way I view the game.
So you're saying like a James White type of performance?
Yes.
Does it all?
Mm-hmm.
Like he did against the Falcons?
Yeah.
Okay, I can take it.
Because that's what I'm saying is like if the Chiefs are going to win, Damian Williams needs to have a big day and they need to be able to run the ball. Because that's what I'm worried about is the Chiefs getting behind and then the 49ers just sending the house every play. Because if you don't give Mahomes the time to throw, because you don't need to give Mahomes long. These receivers are fast.
These are so fast. You give him 3 seconds, he's already launched.
If you're sending the house every play, it's not going to fucking matter. He's going to get sacked. He's going to get hit.
So here's the thing: if you send the entire house, though, right? And this is the risk of blitzing.
Mm-hmm. Mahomes can burn you, especially with these receivers.
Well, if you have someone quick enough, right? Because remember I think it was the Falcons year. Brady had the worst offensive line in football, right? Like they were getting to him so fast, but he was so quick on the release, and Edelman was really good for the separation that those 4-yard passes turned into 1,000,000 yards. Right? Edelman was really good after the catch. I could totally see it being where it's like, okay, Kelsey, forget the block, let them blitz. He's open down the field, and if he's got a one-on-one linebacker, who's winning, Kelsey or the linebacker? Mm-hmm. Kelsey. So I don't think you can send the house every time, but I think you need to require that D Ford and Boza need to handle their double teams really well, or just destroy their double teams, which against this line can happen.
Possible. And then when I'm looking at the Chiefs' defense, we're not talking enough about Tyrann Mathieu.
I'm so glad you brought him up, because I was going to bring him up when I brought up my 49ers case.
Now,
but you can talk about him right now, and then I'll talk about him when I talk about 49ers.
As a Cardinal fan, and as an LSU fan, Tyrann Mathieu is one of my favorite football players of all time, and he has one of the greatest football stories of all time. And now he's left.
He's too short. He's too small. Not athletic enough.
And getting kicked out of LSU and having the rough upbringing he had.
I mean, to be fair, he got kicked out of LSU because bad decisions.
Right, bad decisions. But he also grew up in a bad area, and all of his parents died.
He's a great redemption story.
Right, he really is. And it broke my heart that the Cardinals did him dirty. Like, I understand what the Cardinals were doing, and I wish he didn't take it the way he did. Because the Cardinals were like, we're going to restructure your contract. Because the Cardinals paid him after 2015, after a second ACL tear in 4 years. They paid him a shit ton of money. And then he came back the next year, wasn't the same guy. They're like, okay, we can't pay you this much money for what you're doing. And he said, fuck you guys. You're going to keep paying me this money. And they're like, no, we're not. And then he's like, okay, then I don't want to be here. And so
he went to the Texans.
And so
didn't have that great of a year in the Texans.
And keep this in mind as well. This is what hurts me as a fan. He took less money to go to the Texans than what the Cardinals were going to pay cut him for. He just didn't want to be a Cardinal anymore.
Yeah.
And that broke my heart as a fan because the Cardinals gave him a chance.
I think the big thing is, like, for some players like Matthew, and I don't like this,
it's too emotional.
Once you feel disrespected,
right, you can't let it go.
You couldn't give a fuck, right? You just don't care anymore. So,
But he's the Honey Badger. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck, right? So, Honey Badger don't care. But I almost think, like, taking less money is almost just a big middle finger to the Cardinals organization.
Probably.
Saying, you know, I'll just take less money anyway. The big thing is he didn't actually perform that well with Houston. So when he went to the Chiefs, it was like, well, they got a solid player, but we'll see what happens, right? And he's been phenomenal.
Rejuvenated his entire career.
He's
been incredible.
Dude, some of those...
the AFC Championship game, he was everywhere. That looked like 2015 defensive MVP candidate.
That hit against Derrick Henry was nice.
Dude, yes.
Small guy taking down
and
big
he does that
Derrick
all
Henry.
the time, man. I love Tyrann Mathieu. And he's the heart and soul of that defense, and honestly, that team. And he was the same thing with the Cardinals. He was the heart and soul of that team. And when the Cardinals lost him in 2015, the team wasn't the same anymore.
And I love to see Tyrann Mathieu and Jefferson together again. What a great safety duo.
Mm-hmm. Even though it was more Rashad Johnson at the time. But Tony Jefferson was the third string safety.
Was he? I thought it was Mathieu and Jefferson that were the two big ones.
Rashad Johnson.
Well, you would know better than I would.
Mm-hmm.
I just still remember Jefferson intercepting the ball in that Monday night Ravens-Cardinals game.
I remember that.
Yeah. I totally thought...
Jefferson was more of a slot.
I thought we were going to overtime.
Right.
And then he intercepted in the end zone. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think Tyrann Mathieu is getting enough credit. I don't think Chris Jones gets enough credit. Now, when I'm looking at this 49ers run game, it makes me nervous. Because the way I think the Chiefs win is they have a well-balanced offense and don't let the Niners open the floodgates and blitz. And they make Jimmy G win a football game. And now, yes, I know. You always bring that up when
11 times.
I get it. Okay.
So, no, fun fact for you, okay? I know I threw this to you earlier. I'm going to throw it on the podcast. When the Niners throw 35-plus football attempts, they're 11-3. When Jimmy G throws it 35 times.
I'm not.
They're 11-3.
I didn't say
so it's not like
Jimmy G couldn't do it.
So it's not like he can't do it.
But I'm saying that's how the Chiefs will win, is by making...
So you're basically saying, Jimmy G, you're good at throwing the football, we know it. Mm-hmm. Can you be better than Patrick Mahomes?
No.
For one game.
And that's why I say...
That's what you're saying.
Right. And I don't think he can be. There's not many...
He beat Drew Brees.
That Saints defense is also shitty. And look, I get it.
So
Drew Brees is still... you're going to make me go off right now.
Hold on. So is the Chiefs D is not that great either. But I get what you're saying. Let you continue, because I want to go on my 49ers.
Now, yes, he beat Drew Brees, but Drew Brees is not the same guy. And Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL.
The guy right now.
He is.
Sorry,
and he's not.
Sorry to Lamar Jackson. Sorry to Russell Wilson. Sorry to Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes is still level above everybody else.
And
everybody else.
Jimmy G isn't gonna top what Patrick Mahomes does in this game, even if he wins.
Probably not.
And because that's what I'm saying, is if the 49ers win, they're controlling the game by running the football and destroying Patrick Mahomes. So the Chiefs need to counteract that. They need to make Jimmy G throw the football. And yeah, Jimmy G, more likely than not, will play well if you make him throw the football. But that's not the strength of that football team, and that's why they will not win.
So here's my thing about the 49ers offense. I'm going to segue into what I was going to talk about for the 49ers offense. So for most of the season, they've been this defensive, run the ball, control the clock team. Now, I'm going to take into your consideration where you just stop the run game, make Jimmy G throw the ball. Here's my one problem with that. And I'm not going to bring up the whole, well, Jimmy G's 11-3 when he has to throw the ball. Or Jimmy G just did it against the Saints in the dome. I don't even need to bring that up when I look at the rosters on paper. Let's put...
Because you got to give the 49ers the edge if you're talking roster.
Let's put 6 men in the box. Okay, let's stop the run. Okay, you and I, we're game planning. Let's stop the run. You and I are the defensive coordinators for the Chiefs, okay? We just said let's put 6 men in the box. Okay? Do we trust our corners and our safeties to stop Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Emmanuel Sanders, or even possibly the fact that Matt Breida may be out there? Do we trust that?
That's tough.
That's honestly, that's how the 49ers beat the Saints in a shootout, right? Because the Saints said, all right, we'll stop your run game. And the 49ers were like, all right, well, we got the personnel for the passing game. So pick your poison, right?
Right.
So,
and you know what? That just made me think, too, is I still hold the opinion of Jimmy G that I'm not all that impressed by him, but they have the personnel to make Jimmy G be really, really good.
So that's the thing, is I think Jimmy G is a solid quarterback. I don't think he's elite, right? I think I would say good. He's a good quarterback, almost too great. And there's a difference between great and elite, in my opinion. You have your average quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
You have your good quarterbacks. You have your great, and you have your elite.
Right.
And then you have your below average, and then you have your dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's like
Josh Rosen, elite.
I have six. I have like elite 1, great 2, good
Mm-hmm.
3, average 4, below average.
Right.
I have 6 tiers, right? And I fit him in the good to great. I would say high end good.
Mm, yeah.
That's where I have Jimmy G at right now. I have him at number 11 on my list. Right? You got him at number 12. Either way, he's a top 12 quarterback in our opinions.
Which is plenty.
Which is it's the top 12 teams that are in the playoffs, right?
Right.
You got a top 12 quarterback, you're probably making the playoffs, right? The thing is, he also has like the best roster in the NFL around him, right? It's not just the Jimmy G show. So here's my thing about the 49ers offense. I'm not pointing to Jimmy G. I'm not pointing to Mostert. I'm not pointing to Kittle. I'm not pointing to Samuel. I'm not pointing to Sanders. I am pointing to the fact that Kyle Shanahan assembled himself the best roster in the league. That's what I think of this 49ers team. There's a reason they've won shutouts. There's a reason they've won tight games.
They've won every kind of
There's
way.
a reason they've won blowouts. There's a reason they've won rainy. They've run sunny. They haven't won snowy, but no one gives a fuck because it's in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay? The only game that they have lost were one against the Ravens, okay, in which the Ravens just won because by Vegas points, and I'm putting air quotes around that, was because they had home field advantage, right? Home field advantage means 3 automatic points.
Right.
Ravens won 2017. Maybe it's different if it's in San Francisco, right? The other 2 games, they lost to the Browns? I forget the other 2 teams they lost to. You might want to look that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
But my point is, though, is that we've pretty much seen this 49ers team win every single kind of game possible because that's what their roster is built for. Kyle Shanahan has assembled himself, and John Lynch, the ability to say, okay, we're facing a high-flying team, let's win the high-flying way. Oh, we're facing a ground-and-pound team like Baltimore, let's win the ground-and-pound way. Okay, oh, we're just facing a pretty mediocre team. All right, let's just shut them down defensively.
Falcons, Ravens, and Seahawks.
Oh, Seahawks, yeah.
Their bad game was the Falcons.
Yeah. Oh, that was the one where the Falcons just like totally upset, right? It was like that goal line bullshit.
Yeah.
With Julio Jones. Okay, yeah. Oh, that was when the Falcons went. What did they go like 6-3 or 6-2 in their like final games or whatever? Something like that. The Falcons were like on fire or whatever for like no goddamn reason. The matter of the fact is the 49ers is the most well-balanced team. That's what I'm getting at. They can win any type of game. So let me give you a viewpoint on how I view the Chiefs, how I view the 49ers. Okay, and then maybe we can talk about who we think is going to win. Because I've talked about the Chiefs defense, I've talked about the Chiefs offense, I've talked about the 49ers defense, I'm talking about the 49ers offense and how well balanced it is. If you ask me on a scale of 1 to 100, I feel like the 49ers consistently play at an 80 to 85. Now, 100 would be your 19-0. Okay? So, the only team that's ever been close to that is the Patriots, and they played at like a 95 back in 2008.
Miami Dolphins had a perfect season?
13-0. Or 14-0. Back when it was like a 12-game season. Or maybe it was 15. I forget what it was. We're relating it to this season, though, because I know the Dolphins are the one undefeated team. I feel like the 49ers have been at a consistent 80 out of 100. Which has been much higher than almost any other team. I would say the Ravens were up there too at like an 85, but they're not here. Okay? So the only other team that's played as consistently as the 49ers is no longer in this tournament. Let's look at the Chiefs for a second and the way I view them. If I view the 49ers as the most overall balanced roster and consistently playing at an 80, with their lows at a 75, and their highs at like an 85, right? I view the Chiefs as a wildly inconsistent 12-14 where their lows have been at a 60 out of 100, but their highs have been at 100 out of 100. Okay? If you ask me if this Chiefs team played to its potential every single time, they'd be 19-0 and winning the Super Bowl. Okay? But they haven't played it to it every time. There's a reason they got beat by the Titans. Right? I know Matt Moore was playing, but there's a reason they lost to the Packers at home. Right? I understand Matt Moore was playing, but the thing is they could have won that game with Matt Moore in that game. They didn't. Okay? I understand Patrick Mahomes is a totally different quarterback, but when Matt Moore is playing well enough for you to win, I think at that point it's a team effort, and you just didn't do enough to beat a Packers team that honestly wasn't the best 13-3 team we've ever seen, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to those two factors, and this is where I make my pick, okay? My mom asked me the day after Championship Sunday, who do you think's going to win? I told her Kansas City. Mm-hmm. A few days later, I said San Francisco.
See, this is really hard.
And then I went back to Kansas City. So here's my final analysis. In my last 5 Super Bowl picks, I've picked the favorite 4 out of 5 times. I am 3-1 in those 4 times. The only time but the favorite didn't win was when the Eagles beat the Patriots. The Patriots beat the Falcons, the Patriots beat the Rams, and the Patriots beat the Seahawks. Okay? The one game where I picked the underdog was when Denver beat Carolina. This game, I think it really goes to show that the favorite is usually the one to win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's not very often that the underdog wins. I think in this decade, there's only been 2 underdogs that have won. Baltimore against the 49ers, and
Eagles versus Patriots.
Yeah. And, okay, Denver against Carolina.
Yeah.
3 times. Out of how many? 10 Super Bowls? So more often than not, the favorite's going to win. If you ask me, in my opinion, the favorite is the 49ers, and my pick is going to be the 49ers. I am cheering for the Chiefs, let me tell you that much. Not because I hate the 49ers, and I think it'd be awesome to see Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G win it just so Bill Belichick can bitch at Robert Kraft. Be like, they won a Super Bowl, dude. What's wrong with you? Why'd you trade them away? You know, but they also won 2 more Super Bowls with Brady, so hashtag worth, but whatever. The 49ers are just the most balanced roster in the NFL. They have the ability to play at this consistent level, and they have this consistent game planning from Kyle Shanahan and the offensive and defensive coordinators that no one has actually really figured out outside of a few freak games, if you ask me. The one time they were beaten, or the two of the 3 times they were beaten, I would say were legit. One being a divisional game with Seattle, right? But that's a divisional game. One time being the Ravens, but that's just because the Ravens were the best team in the NFL for so long, and you had a freak loss to the Falcons. What have you done since then? Well, you beat the Vikings, you stomped them, right? You rooted the Packers in the NFC Championship game, and here you have the big bad Chiefs coming in. You play at this consistently high level, why would you stop now? The other side of this that I want to at least give the Chiefs their due credit. If the Chiefs come out swinging and play at their highest potential ceiling, they beat the 49ers. My issue is I'm not sure if you can do that against the 49ers. I don't know if your best will beat the 49ers. That's why I'm picking the 49ers. I do think this will actually be quite a game.
What's your final score?
My final score is 35-31. I actually think it's gonna be a thing where we see a lot of tricks pulled out of the hat. And here's the thing: more often than not, the coaches that win Super Bowls do some really dumb shit. Some plays that come to mind are Sean Payton's halftime onside kick, right? John Harbaugh's punt near the end of that Ravens Super Bowl where they had the punter. He went to punt it, right? And then he just ran into the end zone, and they wasted like 11 seconds of clock, and then he walked into the end zone, right? They took the safety because I think there was 19 seconds left in the game, and they said it's better for us to take the safety and waste 12 seconds of clock than for us to punt it away and give Colin Kaepernick 2 to 3 shots. We give them 2 points, we give Colin Kaepernick 1 shot, not 2 to 3.
Right.
That was the decision you made. We give him 2 free points, we give him 1 shot. For me, that was scary. As a fan, I was like, oh, that's such a gamble. We literally put them... I was like, dude, we gave him 2 free points. No, then he does a field goal. And oh, my God, if we do a penalty, they get into field goal range, we're fucked, right? So, crazy...
I'd be stressing, holy shit.
Or crazy plays, like the helmet catches, or crazy... Like the Edelman catch for the Falcons, right? Or... You're feeling special by the Eagles, right?
The James Harrison 100-yard interception return to
stuff like that, like these like these legendary plays, right? And if you ask me, what is that more likely to happen from? The Chiefs or the 49ers? Chiefs. Well, Patrick Mahomes has that factor, right? Maybe Tyreek Hill.
Travis Kelce.
Sure. But I look at the 49ers, I'm like, okay, D Ford could, Nick Bosa could, Emmanuel Sanders could, Deebo Samuel could, George Kittle could, Jimmy G could. I just look at it and I'm like, the wow factor to me, or that one play that defines the moment, can come from Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, but it's more likely they come from the 49ers. Which is why I got it at 35.
I'll disagree with you on that one.
Like I said, you got to score 35 points for the Chiefs, and the 49ers can do it. I think this is going to be an amazing Super Bowl. Like I said, I'm rooting for the Chiefs. Andy Reid just needs to get his fucking title.
Right.
He just needs to get his title
so
we can stop.
So people can finally say, yes, he is one of the greatest coaches of all time. Because I'll say that now, without a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I love Andy Reid. I think he is one of the best coaches of all time. Now...
So what you got from all of that, right?
Right.
I totally agree. If the Chiefs play at their highest potential, that's higher than what the 49ers got for their potential. The problem is, though, is that the 49ers just consistently play at a higher level than anyone else has, and that's why they're 13-3. That's what I got for you, right?
So, for me, this has been really hard to pick. I've been thinking about this since last week. This has probably been the most difficult Super Bowl I've ever had to pick. And, I perfectly picked the Seattle and Patriots Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Remember, I even called the score 28-24.
Oh, dude, you did. I remember that. That was fun.
Everybody's like, I'm taking you to Vegas. But this has been by far the most difficult Super Bowl I've ever had to pick. I believe the team's weaknesses and strengths match each other so well. And each other's kryptonites are the opposites of each other. And I believe that's what's going to make for a close game, is because the Chiefs can attack the 49ers' weaknesses, and the 49ers can attack the Chiefs' weaknesses, and I think that's what's going to make the Super Bowl so incredible. I hope to God it's not the one scenario where the Chiefs get off to a slow start and the 49ers pull ahead and they just clobber them. That's what
I don't want that boring
That's what
Super
I'm
Bowl.
really worried about.
Let's not have a repeat of last year. Let's just not.
Last year was awful.
If it could be the hype of the Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl, because that was a friggin' awesome Super Bowl.
Good Super Bowl.
I would totally get one.
And see, because everybody's like, oh, the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl is the best one of all time. I'm like,
it was the greatest comeback of all time.
Yeah, the last
18 minutes.
18 minutes was good. It was really good. But
even then, it was very one-sided.
It was a blowout the other way. Basically, what happened was the roles of the game just switched.
It was a blowout for the first, however many minutes in the Falcons' favor, and then it was a blowout for the Patriots. The thing is, it was just so incredible to watch that second blowout happen.
But, like I've been saying, this has been a super hard game to pick. The weaknesses match each other, et cetera, et cetera. I'll start off by saying I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I'll be wearing my Cardinals Tyrann Mathieu jersey on Sunday.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
I will be wearing my Tyrann Mathieu jersey, but...
If I had a Suggs jersey, I'd totally wear it.
After shitting on the 49ers for so long and not picking them to win any of their games in the playoffs, and being so wrong about them all season, I think I finally got to give them their due credit, no matter how much I don't want to hear these fans in this fucking division.
Quest for 6! Quest for 6, there you go.
You're gonna... I feel like they're going to get it, and that's unfortunate. But I'm rooting for the Chiefs, and there's definitely easily a scenario that they win. I don't think, but there's not the thing that came down to it for me is there's no scenario where the Chiefs blow out the 49ers, and there's easily a scenario the Niners blow out the Chiefs. And that's kind of what...
It's kind of weird to think about, right?
Right. And that's kind of... That's what I was thinking about all day at work. I was like, which team can more likely blow out the other team? And that's probably going to be my pick. And I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think my final score, there's going to be some crazy shit happening in this game. My final score is 47-42.
Holy moly! I went for high scoring, but you just went for college, bro.
This is going to be some crazy shit. I believe both of these offenses are super well coached, and they excel at different things. I just think it's going to be a crazy game, and I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to have a really good game. He's going to, because Tyrann Mathieu shows up in big games, he's going to score a touchdown. But Nick Bosa is also going to score a touchdown. I'll tell you that. Right
I want to give one last thing to the Chiefs. Okay, it doesn't always happen because obviously with the Broncos-Panthers game, it didn't happen. Obviously, with the Patriots-Eagles game, it didn't happen. Patriots-Falcons game? No, it did happen.
You talking a defensive touchdown?
No, I'm talking about the best quarterback usually wins the Super Bowl. Oh. It didn't happen with the Broncos-Panthers game. It didn't happen with the Eagles-Patriots game. Yes, Nick Foles had a great time.
But he's not better than Tom Brady.
Well, Tom Brady's performance was...
amazing. Didn't he have like 500?
503 yards and 5 TDs. Now, Nick Foles had 467 and 4 TDs. But the matter of the fact is that Tom Brady still had 40 more yards and 1 more TD.
They should have just given Tom Brady Super Bowl MVP.
I thought he deserved it. I think there's only been one time in history where Super Bowl MVP has gone to the losing team. But I thought Tom Brady should have gotten it. Like, when I left that game, I'm like, Nick Foles is going to win the MVP because they won the game. But honestly, who was the most valuable player on the field that game? It was Tom Brady. Even though he lost, it was Tom Brady. So, it's not very often that the best quarterback loses the football game, right? The Chiefs have it in their favor that they have the best quarterback on the field. So I will say that. It's just 49er roster is just that good.
Right.
That I'm not going to pick the team with the best quarterback on the field. That's not a slight to Jimmy G. It's just, like we said, Patrick Mahomes is a level above everyone else.
I think we're in for a good Super Bowl, though. I think it's going to be really good. It's not going to be anything like last year.
I think the best part about it, too, is, and I'm not shitting on Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Ben Roethlisberger, but it's really nice to see
a different Super Bowl.
And different AFC representatives.
It's been a while.
We haven't seen a different AFC representative since 2012. The last time was Joe Flacco, right?
Almost a decade. That's insane.
It's been so long since someone not named Tom Brady or Peyton Manning has represented the AFC. So it's pretty awesome to see that. And I think Patrick Mahomes is the perfect quarterback for it.
Since we're close to wrapping this up, I'm going to pull out a crazy stat for you right now.
Sure.
There's 2 players that have represented a team in the Super Bowl each of the last 6 years. And it's not the same year, like at the same time, but at least one of these 2 guys were in each of the last 6 Super Bowls. Do you know who they are?
Each one was in each of the last 6? Well, I can't say Joe Staley or Terrell Suggs, because they were both in the 2012 matchup. By the way, those are the only 2 players in the 2012 Super Bowl that are in the Super Bowl. Joe Staley for the 49ers and Terrell Suggs for the Chiefs.
Interesting.
Fun stuff, right? And they play against each other again. And guess what? Terrell Suggs lines up on Joe Staley's side, so they play each other again in the Super Bowl. Fun fact. When you think about... Oh, one of them's got to be Emmanuel Sanders.
No.
What? Yes. Broncos. What?
The last 6?
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders has not been in the last 6 Super Bowls.
He's been in one of them.
I'm talking... There's 2 guys. Now, they haven't been in every single one, but there's 2 players that have at least one of them been played in the last 6 Super Bowls.
So does Jimmy G count?
No. LeGarrette Blount and C.J. Anderson have both been in the last 6 Super Bowls. At least one of them has played in the last 6 Super Bowls.
Okay.
Can you believe that shit?
But neither of them are on the team this year.
I'm not talking about this year!
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about going into this year.
God damn it!
I was thinking about the Chiefs and 49ers rosters, and I'm like, well, who could it be? I was like, well, there's Emmanuel Sanders, maybe there's Eugene. I was like, I don't know. So, over the last, prior, so C.J. Anderson was the Rams, LeGarrette Blount was the Eagles, LeGarrette Blount was the Patriots.
C.J. Anderson was also with the Broncos.
And LeGarrette Blount was with the Patriots again. God damn.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that a wild stat? Imagine being,
Larry Fitzgerald's
been to one Super Bowl. Imagine being one of those guys.
Or, well, I mean, what's his face did it? Michael Bennett did it.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks and
the Eagles, yeah.
Patriots and Eagles.
That's right.
Yep. So he did it with those three. Who's the other guy? He went from the Eagles to the Rams. Chris Long.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Long did it. Oh, sorry. He went from the Rams to the Patriots to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So he went from the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl to the Patriots Eagles Super Bowl, and he played for that. Yeah. Now there's been a few players that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just go to the Patriots and you'll have one Super Bowl, right? Yeah. I think it's lucky to like go to the Eagles or something like that, you know, or like going from the Seahawks to those. That's just like a bit of stroke of luck. But yeah, that is a pretty wild stuff. Yeah, like Eric Blanc, C.J. Anderson, two guys who like frankly won't ever be like Hall of Fame.
You'll never hear. Yeah, you never really hear.
They're those type of players where like you mention their names and people like know who they are if they watch football at the time. But like 15 years,
you won't know them.
15 years from now, right? People like us will still remember the name.
Mm-hmm. But you won't remember anything they did.
But new football fans aren't going to say, oh yeah, I know that name. They'll be like, who? Who dat?
Kind of like Seahawks fans with Sean Alexander.
You know what's funny is Sean Alexander is one of my favorite players that has ever played for the Seahawks. What a baller.
I wasn't super into football when he was playing, so I couldn't give you an opinion.
Oh, he was such a baller.
Yeah.
Do you remember, I don't know if you remember, did you ever watch Nickelodeon as a kid?
Yes.
Do you remember when he did the spaghetti commercials for Nickelodeon for eating healthy? I remember those. I'm just saying. We're getting a little off topic. That's it for our Super Bowl episode for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow, we hit the Super Bowl for 50 minutes. Look at that. Look at us go.
Damn, I didn't expect that at all.
I didn't expect that at all either. I definitely thought I'd be sure of that. Anyways, so we're going to wrap it up here. That's it from Pardue and I. We will be having an episode next week. We'll be doing some fun things. We'll do like our own award show. We won't be doing like just MVP or offensive player, defensive player. By the way, if we were to do that now, it's automatically Chandler Jones and Lamar Jackson for MVP and defensive player of the year.
Damn right. So, and Kyler Murray for rookie of the year.
Probably, yeah.
Probably not.
You don't think so?
It should be. I think it should be, but they're not going to give it to him.
You think it'll be Miles Sanders?
Fuck no, it'll be Josh Jacobs. We'll get into that later.
I would take Miles Sanders over Josh Jacobs.
I would too.
And I'd take Kyler Murray over Miles Sanders. By the way, I finally made my decision on that one. Remember when I was saying I would take Miles Sanders over Kyler Murray for a while? Yeah, I'll take Kyler Murray. Anyway, so that's it for us. We'll have our own awards show. We'll even do some funny things like most overrated team of the year, probably Dallas. Most underrated team of the year. Teams that we think are going to do well the following year. Teams that we think who did well this year are probably going to falter next year. Because it always happens, right? Every year there's a Cinderella team who falters the next year. The Jaguars.
Worst to first team? Arizona Cardinals?
Worst to first team?
It'd be really hard on that division?
No, dude. It's 100% the Bengals. Joe Mixon.
Oh. Just stay tuned.
Joe Burrow.
We got a lot of fun stuff coming.
Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. J squared. Double J. They're gonna run the AFC North.
Hell no.
Bengals got it. Bengals by 50.
I love Joe Burrow. He's about to get ruined.
Bengals play the Ravens. Bengals by 50. Bet. Joe Burrow. Get on that Joe Burrow hype train, bro. Get on it now before he's even drafted.
I've been on it. I'm an LSU fan.
I meant for the Bengals.
Yeah, no.
We will see you all later. We're having a good time. We hope you all enjoyed this episode.